Hey, we're back with another episode of Before You Buy. That's sure we give you some straight up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. It's me, Jake, today, and we're talking about Little Nightmares 3. This is the third installment in a simple, fun little 2D horror franchise that I've always enjoyed. I'm a big fan. They've been published by Bandai Namco, but they still always had their own creative indie feel to them. Just short, thrilling, creepy experiences. Now, the developers Tarsier Studios were the people behind them, but they were purchased by Embracer Group, and that's a whole complicated thing, and they're working on their own new thing that looks promising, but the Little Nightmares franchise remains, so New Blood is taking on this third game. Well, not new blood, so to speak, actually a pretty experienced team. Supermassive Games are on this. The people behind Until Dawn, The Quarry, the Dark Pictures Anthology, among others. So whether or not you're into their games, the way I look at it, at least horror people are making a horror-themed game here. Now, opinion up front, I don't think this lives up to the previous two games. I think this is the weakest of the Little Nightmares games. The vibe just doesn't feel the same. The flow, the pacing, and the engagement are just like, it's not as rock solid. I was a bit let down. Still, it has a few great moments, and because, like the previous games, it's still pretty short, it might be worth checking out at some point anyway. I'm mixed on it. Let's just dive in. But just so you know, I've been playing a review copy, and this footage is captured running on PS5 Pro on the quote-unquote beautiful mode or fidelity mode. There's also a performance mode. But the most important thing is that this is all spoiler-free. You're going to see some stuff here, like I can't hide everything, but nothing from the final two acts of the game, and, I'm not showing all the surprises. Now, at the jump, this is not connected to the previous adventures if you just want to dive in. You play as two new characters, Lo and Alone, two cutesy, creepy, silent kids carrying over that Little Nightmares feel just fine. They struggle, they stumble, they might even creep you out and make you chuckle at the same time, just like any good Little Nightmares thing. They have skins you can unlock, but their main look is great, in my opinion. They're just expressive and weird and also goofy enough to fit in. Now, this is a linear game and a completely cooperative adventure, design-wise. Each character has their own little tool, like, one has a wrench that can turn wheels and whack stuff and break stuff. The other has a bow and arrow to hit various targets, switches, or, occasionally distract or stun an enemy. Now, a lot of the times, one character will pull a switch with the wrench, while the other player shoots something open with an arrow. Now, in the admittedly tastefully done, very few encounters here with combat, one player typically stuns or distracts with an arrow, while the other character finishes the enemy off with the melee with the wrench. Little tweaks to this formula here and there are nice, but it really doesn't get much deeper than that. Now, it might sound like all I'm going to do now is dunk on the game, but I'm going to start with the negative first. I mentioned the co-op right off the bat there for a few reasons. Number one, it's online-only co-op. There's no couch co-op, which don't even get me started, man. In a world where, games like It Takes Two and Split Fiction have been doing so well, just cleaning up and garnering hardcore and casual gamer fandom alike, not having a couch co-op thing here just feels like a baffling miss for me, like an own goal. Even if there's some technological reason that I don't understand, look, I was still frustrated. Second reason, it's online co-op, or you can play single player with the bow-focused character being an AI companion. Now, a co-op adventure, while still trying to feel like Little Nightmares and not making things too complicated, you're either not going to mind this at all or be a bit frustrated, because playing with a friend, there's not too much in terms of creativity of how you interact or work together. And if you're playing solo, on the other hand, the few times you need to wait around for the AI companion just to open a door or do a thing might feel needlessly frustrating. In other co-op games, like when you play single player with an AI companion, dealing with some of the more co-op-y feeling elements are fine because the whole game is built around it. But this game, the co-op elements only really pop up here and there, so when you're playing solo, it's just kind of annoying. Now, this stuff is potentially frustrating because the game just doesn't flow quite as well as the previous games, where most of the times in In those games, I moved along at a nice pace, through the adventure where everything was clear and I could figure everything out in a relatively normal fashion and, the perspective and the views were all right. This game just doesn't progress as smoothly. Sometimes the AI character would show me exactly what to do by going first. Other times he wouldn't even go where I needed him to without a few awkward seconds of delay. Sometimes things are just not visible that you need to interact with. And look, I don't need to be handheld through a game like this, honestly, but compared to the previous two games, some jumps and moments and encounters and little puzzles just felt clunkier and even more trial and error focused than before. Just more friction, for lack of a better word. Now, with all that aside, I am still glad I played through it. It is, to me, the weakest of the three Little Nightmare games, like I said, but it still had enough mood and atmosphere and creativity to it. It certainly feels different from the other two games. The structure, the creatures that appear here are really different. I'd say it's not very scary. The monsters in this one just don't really quite shock as much, but that's more subjective. You might dig them. They kind of swing for the fences with a few of them. I do give them points for trying different stuff. There are a few sequences that did wow me with a good chase sequence and one game mechanic towards the end that really did feel like they were pushing the Little Nightmares formula. It's hard to detail without spoiling, really. Look, I wanted to see more of this stuff, sure, but I'm glad there still was some. Now, despite there being quite a few threadbare, boring areas, the big set-piece areas were absolute stunners, with one in particular that just felt like a good blend of Supermassive's style and preferences, and the Little Nightmares feel that came before it. It's still all gross, it's all grimy, but some of it is hit or miss. But when it hits, it hits. At the very least, there were a few bits or locations that I just didn't expect to see in a Little Nightmares game, and they brought it. There are little collectibles to find by exploring off the beaten path, too. Now, these branching rooms are usually small. It's really often just turn left instead of right, but it's fun to stumble upon the little collectibles and secrets. Now, storytelling-wise, of course, this game is kept extremely simple and vague, like the previous. The characters don't speak, and there are only a few small handful of little cutscenes that don't really tell you much. But by the end, that simplistic storytelling, it worked for me. It was a simple adventure, and unlike Little Nightmares 2, here I was able to predict where it was going. But even if I kinda saw a lot of it coming, I still enjoyed how it was presented. It might not be the most fulfilling tale, it is really simple, it's like an episode of television, but I enjoyed seeing it to the end nonetheless. Now, would I have had a better time if I played through the game with someone else? Maybe. But again, the game doesn't really give you too much to do with co-op anyway. At the very least, if you've played a Little Nightmares game and said, oh man, I want to experience this with a friend, well, now you have the opportunity. As long as that friend is online and in a different location and not on your couch. Look, if I'm being honest, these games are simple to talk about, really. And this one is really simple. My conclusion, again, the weakest Little Nightmares game, unfortunately. A nice, if sometimes frustrating, little spooky playthrough that doesn't quite live up to the potential it had, but it kept me interested enough still for the 4 or 5 hour runtime. And again, if you play co-op adventures online with friends, you might enjoy it a little more, but either way, I still recommend it, but just on sale or at some point down the line, just when you're in the mood for one of these. Again, this ended up being a short one, so this is a before you buy. You know how this goes by now. We give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion, and now we want to hear yours down in the comments. What's your experience with this franchise? Do you like it like I do? Are you coming into 3 without anything else? Were you waiting or itching to play a co-op style Little Nightmares game? Let's talk about this stuff down in the comments. I definitely want to hear from you, and I definitely want to know, if you haven't played 3 yet, whether you prefer 1 or 2. Let's talk anything Little Nightmares down in the comments, and if seeing gameplay and just hearing some opinion and stuff like that helped inform your purchasing or playing decision, clicking a like button genuinely helps us out. That's all we really ask. Thank you. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Ooh.